Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm, episode number 155. I am Mike Grimm, voice of the Golden Gophers, and welcome back to the podcast. One of the all-time great Golden Gopher football players is going into the College Football Hall of Fame class of 2025. Two-time All-American center Greg Eslinger played for the Gophers from 2002 to 2005, and he was also a three-time first-team All-Big Ten pick. He anchors some of the best offensive lines in school history and some of the best rushing attacks in college football history. He'll be my guest this week on the Go Gopher Podcast. Our Go Gopher Podcast is presented by alumni-owned Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're a business founder planning to exit your business, start by contacting Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. Sunbelt serves more businesses up to $5 million in revenue than anyone, and True North M&A serves companies with revenues up to $150 million. Get a confidential, no-cost, no obligation business valuation started today. Make the most of your life's work. Visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union is also a big sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast. Life math is complicated, and Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union makes it easier with local financial experts available to help in person or virtually. Go to affinityplus.org/Go Gophers for more info. That's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. They also have an award-winning mobile app, so check that out. Longtime Gopher sports supporter Cub is a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm. If you're in a hurry, don't worry. Cub delivers. Get fresh meat, produce, everyday essentials, and more delivered to your door. Cub is the official grocer of the Golden Gophers and proud to support Gopher athletics for over 20 years. The Go Gopher Podcast is also presented by OnX Maps. Find out how to download the OnX Fish app for free by listening to the Go Gopher Podcast. And we're in the heart of ice fishing season. We're podcasting episode 155 from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We invite you to subscribe to the Go Gopher Podcast. It's free to do so. You can also go back and have a listen to the Go Gopher Podcast from previous weeks. Last episode, for example, we did a terrific interview with gold medal winning Gopher hockey player Oliver Moore. He told us all about the World Juniors and about this year's Golden Gophers. This week, we're talking Golden Gopher football with one of the all-time greats. Greg Eslinger will join me next.
I'm Clay Geary, walk-on turned scholarship wide receiver for Gopher football.
And I'm Ben Utek, U of M alumni, Super Bowl champion, and Tony Dungy Uncommon Award winner.
We understand championship culture, which is why we're part of the True North family of companies.
True North invests in only elite teams, like the champion team at Sunbelt Business Advisors, Minnesota's largest seller of companies. To learn more about True North and our diverse family of independently owned companies, visit TrueNorthEquityPartners.com.
When we say that Cub milk is the freshest in town, we mean it. Less than 48 hours from farm to store fresh. We guarantee 7 days or more of freshness. It all starts with local dairy farmers who take great care in making sure all the cows are happy and healthy. We support local farm families 365 days a year. And that makes our milk even more delicious. So you always get the freshest milk and the biggest smiles.
It's episode 155. It's the Go Gopher Podcast, and man, are we thrilled this week to have the newest Hall of Fame member. The class of 2025 officially will be inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame in December at a ceremony in Las Vegas. One of the all-time great Golden Gophers, Greg Eslinger, joins us. And Greg, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, Mike.
Well, tell me what this has been like here. Last week, you got notified that you're a member of the class of 2025 College Football Hall of Fame with all kind of household names as well. What has this meant to you here this last week? Is it, I'm sure now is soaking in that literally now college football immortality?
Yeah, and I guess soaking in would be a good term on it because I really was not expecting it. You know, just talking with a previous great Gopher like Bob Stein, you know, throughout this process, you know, I wasn't expecting to get in at year two here. I think that I've been up on the ballot. I think, you know, from my understanding, it usually takes quite a few years. And so honestly, I didn't see it coming at all. I just figured maybe I'd be on the ballot for a few years and maybe something good would happen, maybe not. And wasn't anticipating the call whatsoever and just completely shocked me. So it literally has taken a good while now for it to soak in. And I think it's still just kind of setting in of the vast, you know, just the accomplishment itself and just it's been extremely humbling experience, and really great just hearing from all the old teammates and coaches. So it's been phenomenal.
Yeah, you're the 20th Golden Gopher to be inducted, and that's amongst the top 10. Of course, Minnesota with a rich football history, as you mentioned, the first since Bob Stein. He went in 2020, and he had a long wait, and he was an All-American. And I think there becomes a point where all of a sudden, if you're not in, then all of a sudden you kind of get forgotten. And I think there was a push because at one point your eligibility just runs out, and then that's it because new names keep coming in. So it was good to see Bob get inducted 5 years ago. And now in regard to you getting in, where were you when you got the call? Take me through that part of it.
Well, I was actually at a work event in Montana. So, and again, like I knew it was going to be announced sometime around this time frame, but it was just at the back of my mind thinking, well, you know what, I'll just maybe in 3, 4, 5 or longer years, I'll get inducted, because, the list of potentials that voters can vote on and they have to choose from. It's just an incredible list of great athletes that, we all watched on TV and at one point or another. So yeah, I was in Montana at a work event, and I kept getting a call from the local chapter president for the National Football Foundation, which this is all run through. And I'm like, God, he keeps calling. He must be calling to tell me, like, hey, maybe just hang in there. Maybe next year will be your year. And so I picked up his phone call, and he let me know the good news. And yeah, I was just floored.
It's awesome. So you're at this work event in Montana. Are there football fans around? Are you able to just at least turn to whoever's sitting next to you at whatever it is, a seminar or wherever you're at, and say, hey, by the way, I just got elected into the College Football Hall of Fame?
Yeah. No, it was in Big Sky. So we were having a good time just on the mountain and whatnot. And I'm sitting with some coworkers, and they're seeing me kind of walk away and taking this call, and they're like, God, something's kind of weird. I come back, I'm like, yeah, I guess I got put into the Hall of Fame this year. And they're, obviously congratulations and all that good stuff. So certainly a fun phone call to take.
Once you got the news, then I assume there were some people who were important in your life that you wanted to give the good news to, and you're in the middle of a work event. So how did that all unfold in terms of letting your loved ones and good friends and maybe some former teammates know as well?
Well, it was all kind of like just kind of collapsed on itself. So, I got the phone call, and then literally about 15 minutes later, it got announced on ESPN, and then throughout the social media blitz. And so, my first phone call was to my dad, just, for obvious reasons, for family. I've been fortunate enough to have my parents that were just always such huge supporters in me and my athletic endeavors, and always my biggest fans. So, we had a good emotional moment from that. And then, like I said, just that they got pumped out into social media. Then all of a sudden it just got blitzed with phone calls, text messages, and all the great things from a bunch of ex-teammates and coaches and friends and family. So it was just overwhelming.
Yeah, that is kind of one of those reunification deals, right? You guys always, I know, especially the teammates that you had here that you're tightest with, you're always staying in touch, but life happens and you have your own deal, and everybody, as I like to say, lives in their own world. But when stuff like this happens, it's kind of fun to see and reconnect, and I'm sure you were excited to see a lot of folks reacting the way they did.
Yeah, and that's just it. As at a major university like that for college athletics, everyone scatters everywhere. Maybe back home to their hometowns, or found brighter, happier places on different coasts of the country. So yeah, I was getting messages from guys that I really haven't kept up with well enough, that I haven't heard from in 10 years. So it was great. And just the outpouring too from Gopher greats and past Gopher players that I didn't play with, but we're still proud of, that a Gopher was going in. It really was really was overwhelming.
I'm sure there are still folks reaching out, and I'm sure you're still, as you mentioned, it's soaking in at this point. I know late last week after the announcement was made, your former head coach, Glenn Mason, he appears weekly on a radio show here in the Twin Cities market, and boy, was he beaming with pride when that news came out.
Yeah, and, I reached out to him too, and he obviously reached out to me, and and I just look at him, and I owe so much of what I was able to accomplish, just with him, just really just taking a chance on a nobody from North Dakota at the time, because, when I was coming out of high school, if there was a negative star offering, they would have probably gave that to me. I really wasn't recruited by any major universities or big programs. And, I came to a football camp in between my junior and senior year for Minnesota. And that was after I'd sent out a bunch of VHS tapes that my dad and I made in my basement of highlights from my junior year. Minnesota sent me a little flyer that just said, "Hey, why don't you just come to our football camp?" Nothing personalized or anything, because again, I just wasn't a highly sought after recruit. And I said, you know what, why don't I go to this summer camp that Minnesota's putting on, and I just want to see what's out there, just for my knowledge, because it's I was in a kind of a more or less a bubble in North Dakota, as there isn't obviously a lot of people out there, period. So I just want to say, hey, what does the big city have to offer? For what kind of talent do they have, and where do I line up against that? So my God, and to hell with it, I'll go out there and test my luck and see what happens. And that's where I did really well at the camp, and that's where I got offered. And I don't know what Mason was expecting out of me, and I really wasn't expecting a heck of a lot out of myself coming into the program that first year. I thought, I'll if I put my nose to the grindstone, like maybe I can start my fourth or fifth year, and or if it doesn't work out here, that's okay. I can drop down to maybe a North Dakota school at the time. And he took a shot on me, took a chance on me. I don't know what his initial thoughts were necessarily going through his head, if they were wasting a scholarship or what, but it all ended up working out well. And I owe so much of really a lot of things that have happened to me in my life, just for him to put the confidence and the belief in me, and I walked into a pretty good situation at the time. They just graduated a bunch of offensive linemen. And of course, this is before the days of the transfer portal. So it was, you got what you got. Yeah. And, was able to beat out a guy for the starting position my freshman year. And boy, I remember starting my first game. It was against a Southwest Texas State. I think this was after a grueling two-a-days for my first official college two-a-days, and I think I weighed 240 pounds. So wow. starting in for a major Division I university at 240 pounds was, maybe put a few more pounds back on later in the year. But yeah, I was overmatched, that whole freshman year. But Mason really, Coach Mason really believed in me, gave me that opportunity, and well, I learned a ton that first year.
It is pretty remarkable, and these are some of the great stories. You think about a guy like you, as you mentioned, kind of in a bubble in the state of North Dakota, and now with the internet and different things, it is different. Recruiting, there aren't any, stones unturned now, and this wasn't that long ago, right? This is, early 2000s. It's not like it was, the 1950s or anything, but even then, the internet and the recruiting stuff was just starting to emerge in the late 90s, early 2000s. So you're in this bubble. At that time, the Dakota schools were straight Division II. They were not FCS. So kind of take me through, what your options were besides Minnesota. Had you not gone to that camp, where do you think your career heads? And what do you think it was about your work at that camp that turned the eyes of the coaches?
Yeah, I mean, out of high school, I was basically just recruited by North Dakota, South Dakota, and a little bit by the University of Montana out in Missoula, which was a 1AA school at the time, and still is. But yeah, I mean, my dad and I made that tape, and we sent it to every major university that in in basically a 600 or 700 mile radius. I sent it out to Wisconsin, to Iowa, to like all the different spots that were somewhat close in the area or that we had a contact to, really. Just didn't get a lot of traction from that. But yeah, when I showed up to Minnesota's camp, I obviously, back then too, and I'm sure that there's a lot more opportunities now for camps and kind of being seen now for kids, but back then that was just kind of we just had a few options, and at that camp I played really well. They kind of used it as that, I think, to just kind of scope out any kind of local talent or whoever's coming there, and basically showed that I belonged in that area or belonged in that arena. I didn't know if I believed it myself at the time, but yeah, when they offered me, I was, obviously elated there, and it was a no-brainer for me to accept that scholarship. And then knew I needed to put in a bunch of work, because then when you're at that camp, you're walking around the University of Minnesota facilities. So, I'm peeking in at the weight room to see the current players, and I'm just thinking, wow, after the fact, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to get myself into, because those guys all look real big, really strong, and really fast. And we'll see if I can, make something happen here. And, definitely had, coming in my first year, I definitely had that chip on my shoulder. I wanted to prove that I belonged. I wanted to prove that, a kid from North Dakota could make it in the big time, in division, in the Big Ten conference, and really just had that motivating factor behind me.
Amazing. No question about it. Let me quickly mention a sponsor here, then we'll get more with Greg Eslinger, the newest member of the class of 2025 College Football Hall of Fame. Let's talk about Affinity Plus. It's your local credit union. They proudly serve Minnesota and have been doing so since 1930. If you're a current Gopher student or a proud Gopher alum, you are eligible to join this financial that wants to build a meaningful banking relationship and put you first. You can meet with a local employee at any of their branches statewide, including right off campus in Minneapolis on University Avenue. To learn more and find other ways to connect, you can visit affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. That's affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA. People-centered banking, perfect for Gophers. And ice fishing is here, and it's time to hit the frozen water with OnX Fish. The Fish app is the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your confidence on the ice. Use OnX Fish to find new places to fish and sort by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potentials. OnX Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and private and public land ownership information. For a limited time, download OnX Fish for free in Minnesota and Wisconsin, or go to onxmaps.com/fish to get more information on the app that is changing the game on ice. You mentioned your North Dakota upbringing, and I had mentioned earlier that the Dakota schools at that time were Division II, and they were good Division II schools. They had at times produced both the Dakotas, North and South Dakota, North Dakota, South Dakota State had produced, a handful of NFL players from that Division II level. Did you grow up a particular fan of any team at the college level from North Dakota? I mean, being from North Dakota, it could be some other team, but how closely were you following college football at the time?
No, at that time, not a ton, because I just kind of wrapped myself in the high school tradition out there.
Yep.
But I grew up an NDSU fan, a Bison fan. My dad was fraternity brothers with one of the previous coaches, Rocky Hager, out there. So I remember going. He would always bring me to games out there and to the Fargo Dome, and was fortunate enough to be able to run into locker rooms and some of those earlier years before when Rocky was the coach. But and then I grew up playing hockey too.
Yeah.
So I was kind of split. So I obviously I cheered more for the Bison for football, but I was a big UND hockey fan as a high school, and as a kid too, for myself playing hockey.
and then you end up as a Gopher, obviously a big rival of North Dakota in terms of hockey, and maybe not as much football-wise because of the different levels. As you now are removed from your career here, and really just about 20 years removed from your career, how often now do you think back to your playing days and some of the memories, and what are some of your fondest memories wearing the maroon and gold?
Yeah, I mean, and certainly during this time, it's been great catching up with old teammates and just sharing old stories and having laughs about all of our times and endeavors and trials and tribulations. But and kind of like what most people say, I mean, the things you take back, I mean, the games were all great. It's the wins were great. Some of the losses, it had some very memorable losses, but we're still just a ton of fun to play in those games. But I mean, really what you always draw back to is the time with your teammates, in the locker, in particular, like, in the weight room, and just having fun with the guys. I mean, that's the thing that I most miss. And those are some of my fondest memories, just beyond the games were just the bonds that you create, and, just kind of the stories that you also created during those times too, for just kind of the hijinks and some of the fun times that you have outside of the football field.
Yeah, and when you talk about that, just kind of the general times, I mean, I look down, two-time first-team All-American, Outland Trophy winner, Remington Trophy winner, 2006 Big Ten Medal of Honor, Scholar Athlete of the Year, 2005 William V. Campbell Trophy finalist, three-time All-Big Ten, only one of two Gophers to have that. I mean, a lot of accomplishment on the field as well. And I suppose some of those honors you think about are team honors as well, right? I mean, you have a guy like Lawrence Maroney and the late, great Marion Barber III, right, who you're blocking for. They sometimes can make an offensive lineman look pretty good too.
Yeah, they make an offensive lineman look pretty good, and they were awesome teammates to have around. I mean, absolutely. But man, we had so much fun, and both Lawrence and Marion, I mean, they were just such fun guys and great guys to be around, always making you laugh, and just kind of like little, they were definitely playful characters. But I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're an offensive lineman, all those awards that you speak of, it's like it's a team award is the way I look at it, because as an offensive lineman, I mean, you got to move as one. And I was fortunate enough, my freshman year, I got basically Joe Quinn, who was a guard. He took me under his wing and really befriended me, and and really kind of helped me through the scary times of your first start, your first big game, in those key moments. He was always just this a calming force for me, and obviously a really good friend. And the other thing that I'll say too is I played for my 4 years of playing. It was me and another true freshman next to me, and Mark Setterstrom.
Yeah, and
Setterstrom was a phenomenal player, and you take the two of us, and then I think we started 50 some odd games consecutively next to each other.
It's amazing.
And so, I mean, we built such a great playing chemistry that we were always in complete sync. And I think that's incredibly important as an offensive lineman. So I look at those awards. There's no way I'm getting those awards without great players around me, because it's not an individual effort as an offensive lineman. I had some fantastic running backs behind me that were phenomenal athletes. And then I look at the guys next to me on my offensive line, like the Joe Quinns or in particular, for sure, like Mark Setterstrom. And not to just single those guys out, but there was obviously some other great players that I played next to and with as a part of that offensive line. It just takes great chemistry. It takes just kind of that mentality that we are one. And there were no individuals on that offensive line. Yeah. Yes. I got given a lot of those awards, but there's no way that I'm being recognized without that mentality from the offensive line and all those teammates around me.
Yeah, man, we see Joe often. He, of course, still works with the Golden Gopher Fund. He's stuck around and he helps with development. Now his job is changing, it seems, every day, too, with name, image, and likeness and trying to help find money for that and keep the Gophers competitive and trying to move up that food chain. And Setterstrom, the pride of Northfield, Minnesota as well, and what a great story you guys all were with that. That zone blocking scheme, there have been zone blocking schemes all throughout, recent history of football, but I think there were some cutting edge things that you guys did then, including the center polling, which wasn't always something that happened. What made that scheme so good for this group of guys?
Well, I think that they went out and they found the right talent for it. I think Coach Mason was an excellent recruiter, and all of his staff of finding the right guys for it, and that included the running backs and the quarterback and everything. Because so much of what we did was based off of our run game, and in the passing game as well. And I also think we were totally different, and in that I came to the right program at the right time with the right mentality, and what I mean by that is, I was a smaller offensive lineman. I wasn't, nor am I like a huge stature person. I was 6'3", and like I said, in my first year, I was starting somewhere around 240 to 250, and then obviously I put on weight, but I don't think I ever maxed out at the University of Minnesota. I think my max weight was like 280, 285, which by today's standards, pretty small offensive lineman, and even back then. Around the Big Ten, you had some big road grading offensive linemen, Wisconsin and their power scheme, Michigan, and, they had some great, obviously big, powerful offensive linemen that were great in the run or pass blocking. And that's not what we did. We were a smaller offensive line, and we were dare I say, the athletic offensive line, right? So
right.
we were quick on our feet, and I know that that's what they saw for me, is that I was a guy that was a little bit lighter, but I could pull and I could do things a little bit differently than the classic offensive lineman that's just mano a mano and head up. And not that we weren't asked to do that every now and again too, but we were all quick, fast offensive linemen that weren't just about trying to I guess pancake block everyone or double team. It was we were technical blockers, and we were just really athletic. And so I think that I came into the right situation there for my style of play. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think that I would have worked out very well at a school like Wisconsin at the time that was the big, mean, powerful offensive lineman.
Yeah, and the scheme certainly was part of it. I'm thinking back, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it was at that time there wasn't a lot of centers that were being asked to snap the ball and then pull right or left to lead down the field. Guards, of course, had been pulling often, but and maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think that you were kind of a trailblazer in that. And there are centers now that that they all over football now that they ask to pull. What do you remember about that part of it? And was that something that you also did in high school?
No, like in high school, I definitely did a lot of pulling, but I was a guard for my last 2 years of high school, a tight end before that. But so I used to catch the ball and make all the fun plays. No, I'm joking. But but yeah, so it was very unique. There wasn't other teams in the country. Sure, I think maybe some teams stole from Coach Mason and his scheme and Mitch Browning, and kind of stole the center pull every now and again. But they didn't have a lot of teams just didn't have that type of center or offensive lineman that was quick and athletic. And so, that's certainly what I excelled at. And I'll say I certainly prided myself on being in shape, but once we would put together some of those 10, 12, 13, 14 play drives, where we're running a lot of outside zone and you're pulling 7-8 times, and in that span, boy, you got tired. But it was and especially once I'm pulling as a center, and you got a guy like Lawrence Maroney, who was one of the fastest running backs on the field at that time. You got to hustle. So it definitely was a challenge, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's like you say, sometimes it was a 10 or 12 play drive. Sometimes it might have been a 1 or 2 play drive because of Maroney. If you got him a sliver enough of space, I think he has the most career rushes for over 40 yards. I think he's got 4 or 5 over 80-yard runs in his career. So what was it like, because then you had, of course, and there were others, but, the famed duo Maroney and Barber, Marion was more the power runner, and then you had kind of thunder and lightning with Maroney. If you got him a sliver, he could go the distance. So what was it like when you made the block and then the next thing you know, number 22 is out in front and you're just watching him head to the end zone?
Well, there was no better feeling, but those guys, when they'd have a nice long run, they were the first ones to come back and look for us. They were so gracious and to the offensive line. So they were always looking back to us and trying to make it about us and not just them. So just fantastic teammates. And like you said, either Marion Marion was more between the tackles and more powerful, but he had a second speed too. And
yep.
You just never knew when those guys were going to break it. And whether that been a little inside run or zone or an outside pitch or whatever it was, the potential was always there. So it was just so much fun blocking for those guys. And again, they were the first ones to come back and jump up on us and make it about us and not just about them.
Right. We had Lawrence at practice this year. He came back for one of the games. Senior, might have been homecoming, I want to say, Maryland game, and he had his 2 kids there, and he's already lobbying PJ Fleck to offer a scholarship to his, I want to say maybe his oldest is like 9 or 10, something like that, and they look like they could move. They were having fun playing against each other along the sideline, but Maroney is such a great personality. I really enjoyed, as we were standing there watching practice, we had a nice conversation for sure. Which leads me to then how much, speaking of him being back at practice and watching the team, how closely are you able now to follow the current day Gopher football team?
Yeah, follow them very closely. So, listen to you on the radio when I can't get in front of a TV or watch them with my kids at home on the television or come to games. So we try to make at least 1, if not 2 or 3 games a year on the season. And I'll say Coach Fleck has been just awesome. Coach Fleck and his whole staff have been awesome in reaching out to alumni such as myself and just making it a very easy environment for us to be a part of, and welcomes every aspect of us older alumni to be a part of the team and not just be a spectator. So he's been a phenomenal coach from an alumni's perspective of just being invited back and really feeling a part of that family again. So he's been awesome.
Yeah, and it's they end up having another good year this year, another bowl win. They have the longest bowl win streak as well, so that's kind of fun. You mentioned your kids. Tell us about what you're up to now. I know maybe you're coaching some youth football and working. Is it in pharmaceuticals, medical devices? I forget now.
Yeah, no, I'm in medical device. So I'm in and out of operating rooms for total hips and total knees and work in that field. But I have 3 boys. My oldest is a junior and my youngest is in 7th grade now. So just been really busy with their activities and really I've really been enjoying watching them and all in their pursuit of whether it's sports or something else. Just being their fan now. So it's fun to put the fan hat back on and the pressure and stress of being the center of attention and the athlete is off. But yeah, definitely obviously a different stage in my life. And, I put on my coaching hat for my kids and some of their hockey teams. And then obviously some of their football teams. So I'd be remiss to say if I didn't call myself the Bill Belichick of eighth grade football coaching, as we won our championship. Had a championship trophy of 2 years ago. So
nice.
I guess I just got to put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that trophy then, is that up right next to the Remington and the Outland in your on your mantle?
It might be a little bit higher. No, I'm joking, but no, just super fun to work with kids now. And obviously my kids, that's very special, but just to get back into football in that regard, and just kind of give back to a sport that has given me so much in my life. So, I mean, football has obviously been a huge portion of my life, and I owe a lot of just my daily endeavors and where I'm at now today in life have come from the life lessons that you learn as a kid on that eighth grade football team, and getting chewed out by a coach or patted on the back, and just being able to kind of be a part of that again and pass down the life lessons that I learned through the sport onto the next generation has been a lot of fun.
Man, fantastic. Two quick questions before I let you go. You mentioned you and Setterstrom started 50 plus games all 4 years. That's hard to do in football, particularly along the offensive line, bumps and bruises, and to avoid injury and oftentimes major injury amongst, guys that play up front. The durability that you guys showed, how proud of you of that part of your body of work are you?
I guess I think I was very fortunate, first off, to not have something happen in that time frame. But yeah, I remember trying to avoid the training table or the trainer room like the plague. So I never wanted to become friends with the trainers because that means I wasn't playing on the football field. But yeah, I mean, it's especially even back then, and I'm not saying it's totally different now, but that was a part of it. That was kind of the grit. I mean, I certainly didn't play 50 healthy games. There was a lot of bumps and bruises and things that maybe I should have been smarter about of sitting out maybe a game or two, but you just took pride. You just took pride in the team. You took pride in each other, and you never wanted to feel like you were letting anyone down. And, it's just kind of that sacrifice that like Mark and I made of trying to put the team first. And maybe it wasn't the smartest thing in certain circumstances, but yeah, I mean, I took a lot of pride in that and kind of, pushing through those really tough times.
Yeah, for sure. And then, as we march down memory lane here, which has been just an absolute blast here with the newest Hall of Fame member class of 2025, Greg Eslinger, people love to hear about what everyone's up to. So I'll ask you kind of in general about amongst your teammates. You've mentioned Setterstrom. We've talked about Maroney, Barber, Joe Quinn, and others. Do you have a core group that, whether they were roommates or whatever, that maybe you got a group text or something of names that folks would love to hear again, that you guys stay in pretty tight touch with?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in pretty tight touch with quite a few players actually, but just keeping up with each other's ongoings, and I'm 41, so most of my teammates are around the same age, so it's like, it's life has taken us all in different turns, and we're kind of around that age group where everyone's just dived in with all their kids and all their activities, and so it's the annual get-togethers are a little bit tougher and tougher as time goes on.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like I say, everyone has their own lives, and now you're coaching, and you got your own thing, and the schedules get busy. And so when you have something like this, it's awesome to kind of get that reconnection, and what a great reason. Last one for you. December, Las Vegas. Do they have you talk? And if so, at the induction ceremony, how do you think that will go? And are you starting to think about what you want to say?
You know what? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the actual itinerary is for that weekend. I'm still soaking in the announcement, but I'm sure in months to come that I'll kind of figure out of what that kind of looks like. And I remember it being just a fantastic event because when I was a senior in college, I was up for that Dratty Award, which was at the time the academic Heisman. So there was about 15 of us from around the country that got invited to that, and that corresponded with the college football induction. So it was a bunch of us student athletes, or 14 or 15 of us student athletes that were current players, and then we got to watch the actual ceremony and induction. And at that time, it was at the Waldorf in New York. And I just remember that event stands out to me as just one of the greatest, like really one of the greatest events I've been to. They do such a great job with it. It's really unique in the fact of that it's really just the football nostalgia, not only
right.
just obviously for the old college football Hall of Famers that are getting inducted, but just, some of the other nostalgic characters that are part of it. And, I remember just being super pumped up because I got to meet George Steinbrenner was there. So it's really a super interesting experience. It's so different than a lot of them out there. So I'm looking forward to whatever events that they have, and the class that I'm going in with I'm really excited to meet a lot of all those players and just share our experiences and get to know some more people.
Outstanding. Well, we'll look forward to it. We'll keep tabs on it, and hopefully we'll catch up again here when football season rolls around, and we'll catch you on campus, Greg. Congratulations. It's a tremendous honor, well-deserved, one of the all-time Gopher greats. Thanks for joining us here on this week's Go Gopher Podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
My thanks to College Football Hall of Fame Class of 2025 member Greg Eslinger. I know you enjoyed hearing from him and hearing about those memories as much as I enjoyed being part of that conversation. Episode 155 is presented by Sunbelt Business Advisors and True North Mergers and Acquisitions. If you're buying or selling a business, visit sunbeltminnesota.com or tnma.com today. We're also partnered with Affinity Plus Federal Credit Union, a locally member-owned full-service financial invested in you. You can learn more at affinityplus.org/Go Gophers. Affinity Plus, banking for Minnesotans. And Cub is a proud supporter of Gopher Athletics for over 20 years and a proud sponsor of the Go Gopher Podcast with Mike Grimm. Cub, bigger savings on the items you love. OnX Maps also sponsors our show, Happy Ice Fishing. Again, I'd invite you to listen to past podcasts, and right now, please click that subscribe button to the Go Gopher Podcast. It's free to subscribe and free to listen at any time. And please share the link to the podcast with others so they can subscribe and listen as well. And if you enjoyed the podcast, let us know about it on social media. Give us some positive feedback on your social media channels. We'll talk again next week.